Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is July 6, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Please subscribe. I want to welcome today's guest, Luke Mistruzzi. Where are you calling from, Luke?
I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Probably food. Good
Food
food.
is a good answer. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Oh, I've always liked audio, uh, and then visual after that. But if
Yeah.
I'm learning stuff, I like to hear it.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Oh, well, I guess strategy and curiosity. I like curiosity a little bit more myself, but
Yeah.
so yeah, off the top of my head.
Is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
Um, I think it's innate. Well, I think
Yeah.
we're kind of pattern recognizers, and that's what information comes out of.
Do do thoughts create emotions?
Um, I imagine they're somewhat of a symbiotic type of a thing where thoughts and emotions feed each other.
Yeah.
But
Fill in the
yeah, emotions can take you away from some good thought as well, and you can overthink things to keep you from emotions. So
yeah. We're going to get into that more. Um, Fill in the blank, Luke. I don't know what I think until I.
um, have made the mistake.
That is good. I got to write that down. That's a good one. I rarely get that. Yeah, this woman a couple weeks ago, I loved it. I says, I don't know what I think until she goes, rant about it for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, if I do that, that's a mistake. But
That's a mistake. But
not a
your fellow Canadian McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion said, I don't know what I think until I write it. So make the mistake is really brilliant. It's really a theme of what I talk about here a lot in these discussions. So can humans think without language?
that's a good one. I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
I think it might be more of a feeling type thing, but it's feeling thought that goes back to your emotional question. I think
Yeah.
there's language probably comes out of feeling and trying to communicate those feelings off the top of my head. But
What Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Luke, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
smile,
That
uh,
is good.
laugh a bit.
Smile
Hopefully.
and laugh. That's brilliant. So, your observations, and this is back to what we were just talking about, your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Oh, I guess it depends on the person, um, and where you're at in the point of your life. But I think we're probably more feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe could use a little bit more feeling in the thinking in some roles of leadership at the moment. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Because Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? And, people who meditate say, okay, now think about not thinking. And there's a car on my street. The bumper sticker says, don't believe everything you think. And then I say, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So these two are from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, Is thinking a function of the soul?
I would imagine so. I guess it depends what you think of as the soul, and what drives your sense of self and consciousness, and your constitution. And so I would think it's they're wrapped into each other completely, if not
Yeah.
symbiotic again. Yeah.
Yeah. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Yeah, I like, I, I think I wouldn't discredit what a machine is telling me it's thinking, whether it's the way humans think or not. I think it's just as valid. Humans are wrong all the time. Machines can be
Yeah.
wrong all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're sharing reflections of everything they have to process. So
Yeah. I don't know if Waymos have infiltrated Canada as much as they have Venice, California, but
is
there's
that like
way
the AI cars or like the
they're
taxis?
they're driverless cars.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of them, but
Well,
no, they haven't.
dude, it's about bottom line. If I don't drive, I ask my friend to drive me somewhere. It's way safer to drive in a Waymo. But I would never order one. I mean, I couldn't sit in a car and expect, but they have 27 cameras on this
Yeah,
car. And so it's safer, but that's a hard thing for us to digest. So, is that car thinking? Yeah, it's thinking a lot better probably than humans. So why would I ever ask a friend to drive or hire a human if I'm after safety? But
yeah.
again, it's a hard thing to switch over. You know, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Um, I think they kind of come from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pretty lucky person in that I have a pretty happy, just general state of being. So I'll get depressed here and there, no doubt. But and yeah, meaning. Yeah, that's a good question. What is meaning? So maybe neither. I don't know. Just
Oh, that's great. No one ever says neither because, I'm for tangents, stories, anecdotes. You don't have to answer the question. And I like when people reword the question or use different wording. So I'm open to all that. It's basically me and you are psychoanalyzing the wording on the questions. But,
yeah.
I got that question from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says that meaning tends to last and happiness doesn't necessarily last. What's your thought on that?
Um, yeah, I guess I think happiness lives in memory.
Yeah.
So, I got my son sneaking in the back here. So, I got. If I don't know if you can see, but there's a diaper changing table in the back. We got a 13-year-old and a 9-month-old in the house. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, we're keeping busy.
Well, this is funny because it goes into this next question. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Um, Experiencing it is what first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're experiencing the consciousness through our senses, and we can contribute to that consciousness or just uh, um, wallow in it or be, yeah, just go to sleep. Yeah.
Hey, I like that.
Different place of consciousness in your dreams, but yeah.
Yeah, taking a nap's a good idea. Or like your whole film, Uncle Bardo, consciously go into a coma or unconsciously go into a coma. Yeah, like, or what does that mean? Like, do you consciously go to sleep? Yeah, when you go to bed at night, you're kind of like consciously, okay, now it's time for me to sleep. But back to driving a car, you don't want to be driving a car and falling asleep.
No, yeah. Well, and I guess the computer could technically break. I don't know what the difference is.
Oh yeah, no, it can break, definitely.
Yeah.
No, the scary thing about Waymos is the one person who told me they took one said it stalled in the middle of an intersection. And so he calls them up and then says, okay, we'll fix it soon. And he got panicky and he couldn't get out. They lock you in.
Oh, really? Wow. That's the safest thing is like stay put.
Well, they've locked us in airplanes their whole career. So what's the difference? What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
I would say speed of light if it's my thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer, her colleague, said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
New tool. I don't know. Yeah, that's I just thought of walking. I don't know if walking's a tool.
Oh, walking's a tool. That's really
that's
good.
an ancient tool. Yeah,
that's a really good tool. I've done these surveys for 50 years, and my favorite answer was my Ann. It says, I'd rather blank than blank. And she put, I'd rather walk than do the dishes.
Yeah.
Walking is a high art form. That's a great tool. And in the follow-up is, what toy do you suggest? What toy do you gravitate towards? Or
definitely a ball. Any ball.
Yeah. Being in Canada, you'd think you'd say hockey puck.
Yeah. I didn't play a lot of hockey. I was more
wow.
Guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but can you hum the theme song for the Canadian TV show that plays hockey?
I embarrassingly, I don't know. I didn't grow up in a hockey household, but it might be in there. As soon as I
hear
it,
What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Not much. Yeah. Currently, it's if I'm going to be able to sleep through the morning. Yeah.
Well, here's your Canadian bit again. McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. Musicians, filmmakers, they're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might be able to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Luke, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Yeah, I don't know. I think of like that suspension of disbelief, where there's so many distractions within the world, and you're kind of swimming in it, and it's you need to feed yourself, you need to make money to pay your rent and do whatever else, and I think distraction.
Probably. That's it.
No, I think it's a very. I wonder that a lot. The media we're in is. I wish that people paid more attention to the way they're experiencing information and their surroundings.
It's funny because McLuhan's first book in 1951, The Mechanical Bride, addresses that very thing you said. He called it information overload, that we're swimming in information overload. And that was, many years ago, and it's still there, maybe even more now. And why don't we use their techniques for education? Because do they have, some, it's not like they're doing any bad techniques. It's all the art of persuasion. We might call it propaganda, culture and action, whatever. Do artists have moral obligation?
I think they can take on moral obligation. I wouldn't say any more or less than any human being.
Yeah,
It's a moral obligation, and it, I think it depends on the intent of a purpose. Sometimes it's good to turn your brain off and just make stuff and throw
yeah,
some throw some food in a pan or some paint at a wall and see what comes out. But at the same time, you can do a lot with uh, feeding a community or creating art for community. And so I think that's kind of a something you need to take on yourself as an artist. That and it can happen by accident as well. I think, and I don't think it's something you should ignore um, and neglect. But
yeah.
I don't think it should always be at the root of what you're creating or thinking and kind of manifesting one way or another. So,
Yeah. Good words. You're a wordsmith. Beautiful words. In fact, we're going to get into intention. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
uh, I guess new ideas that don't consider the old ideas. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think I'm. I would. I think I'm. I love all ideas, new and
Yeah.
old. New ideas are exciting, and it's even I guess the atomic bomb is an awful idea, and it can be thought of as a peacekeeper or a world ender. So it's the idea is one thing; it's then what you do with the idea.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. Are there new ideas? That's another one, but
Yeah.
I think there are. But
Well, that's what you're doing. You're doing what you win because I'm here to invent new questions and new metaphors. So when people answer a question with the new question, I was like, okay, that's it. We're done.
all right,
'Cause that's what we're trying to do. So
yeah.
can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Oh yeah, I remember climbing around apple trees and my door frames at my parents' first house. Sometime between 2 to 4 years old. I'm not sure exactly how old I was, but um, yeah, playing in the grass. So
Great thing. I'm from Michigan, Midwest, same philosophy, man. You try climb trees and play in the grass, you know.
yeah, yeah, Michigan's not too far away. So
Yeah. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I think it can be very much a curse, but I'm pretty nostalgic. So I think memories live in uh, uh, your own personal, like they can be triggered by objects and not so much. There's a personal animism of sorts, and depends on your experiences. I think memories can very much be a curse, but so
Yeah.
yeah, I think you gotta. Um, take them with a grain of salt because you can also
Yeah.
get lost in the nostalgia in a negative way, even if it's
Yeah.
positive nostalgia. So,
Yeah. Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
I guess I think of my grandfather right away. Everyone in my family had their own impact, but yeah, he's just a quiet, thoughtful. Um, I would say morally driven man. We didn't go to church or anything like that, but uh, when he passed away, I thought to myself, um, "Who needs God when you have Grandpa?" Kind of like
Wow.
uh,
It's a
it's
beautiful statement.
it's yeah. I think the people in your closest life are the most influential on that, and he set a high bar. So
That is a great statement. Who needs God when you have a grandpa? When you have grandpa. Okay, so same question, Luke, outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
another person. Um, my parents definitely.
No, this
Well,
is
or,
but this is outside your family.
outside of the
So-
family.
yeah,
Yeah.
someone
Oh,
outside your family who had an impact.
yeah. Took a took a while. Friends, family. I think once I started working professionally, working with some older people and seeing like outside of your kind of smallish, but thinking you know more than you do, high schoolish type brain, and then fortunate enough to work with some very wise people that were probably closer to my age now at the time, but just seeing how they saw joy in life and how much their priorities and how happy they were. So not one specific person, but just looking to your peers in community that
Yeah.
your elders, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Uh,
Um, but you said, were you raised a particular religion?
Not at all. No, I've been in church less than fingers I have on my hands. Always, whenever I sleep over at a friend's house or something. But so yeah, I'm very interested in religion, but more through reading and listening about it, and a generalist in general. So
Do you pray?
I was taught how to pray as a kid because my father grew up Catholic. So um, in my own way, meditating, praying, both half-assed. Um, yeah, but I think I do believe in the that your thoughts can direct you in the way you go and the way things will happen in your life. I think it's important to really think about things you want, whether it's for you or for other people, and whether that actually has an effect on the greater world. I don't know if that really matters or not. I think it does, though.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Me, party on. I, uh, I don't think I think it would be one of those language things that it's in a totally uncomprehensible language that it would I would hope it's like a nice peaceful just like hum that's
Nice.
joyous.
A
I don't know.
nice
Yeah.
peaceful hum. Now, I've never had that answer. Yeah. A nice peaceful home is really good. Do evil people exist or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Oh yeah, like little David Lynchy type thing there. I like the Lynchian that the evil finds its way through the people and it's ever present. So yeah, I think our what the word evil means is something that's just part and parcel of nature,
Yeah.
and where we channel it.
The real question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Um, I think there's like you don't want to ignore. Depends if is that enemy only acting on you or is it are they acting on other people?
Yeah.
So by acknowledging someone that's doing evil things or an enemy, is it? I think on a very personal level, you're empowering it by focusing on it, and but I think it might be one of those things that you have to move through instead of around or over or under kind of thing, and you don't want to evade it. So I think you might empower it, but you got to do that unless it just gets repressed. And yeah, I guess it depends on the context.
Well, like
Yeah.
if your son came home and said, "I'm being bullied," what advice would you give him, if any?
Yeah, like the stop, drop, and roll kind of thing. I would probably say just go mind your own business and tell that person that they're like they're I'm not interested in this. And yeah, I guess it is. There's so many other things you can focus on in life than that one-to-one relationship, and like but that I don't know if that scales up. So
Yeah, Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. So, like, if a criminal gets caught, does he go, "Whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day," or does he go, "Oh, I did something morally and socially wrong"? So,
yeah.
it gets a lot of prompts. You can go wherever you want, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
It reminds me of something a friend said just over a drink, talking about how his son he caught his son cheating at school,
Yeah,
and he's like do I teach him how to be a better cheater, like,
yeah,
or do I tell him that cheating's wrong? Because
yeah,
the world is not a fair world.
yeah,
So I think again it's a question. Because it's not a fair world, are you ignoring
yeah.
the reality of the way the world works by not enhancing your cheating, so to speak? I guess
Yeah,
I don't promote cheating myself, but
yeah. Well, you don't promote it, but you don't do it. So that's you're teaching your son not to cheat by not cheating. But the guy's being realistic because maybe the kid saw his dad cheating and he says,
yeah,
"Well, I'm learning how to do it from you, you know."
yeah, yeah.
But but does, but does punishment work? Does like if he said, "Oh, okay, go to your room, you can't use your cell phone for a week because you cheated," does that work?
Yeah, I think it's putting someone in their place, a bit of humility. Like how I think humility is more of the lesson when it comes. What are often people are cheating because they need to, because it's the only way they can get by. And
Yeah,
other people are cheating just because they're power hungry or assholes, kind of thing. So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a good question. No,
James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He
really?
basically checked out. Yeah, in Volta Cinema. He says, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I think that's like story. It's how you share experience, and it compacts um, what it compacts your experiences to share with other people, and we're sharing from one person to another. We want to share experiences to help protect people, but also just to share enjoyment. And so I think we can't do it all. So stories are a way of expanding our just understanding of the human experience, so that we can go and find. It's kind of like a bit of a. Then you get to choose what you go towards, like, and what to avoid.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
like a real important artist from Michigan said, "Art is making your problems other people's problems." And
yes.
it's like what you just said was, well, you could say art is making your joy other people's joy.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And also, I think there's something to having an understanding of what a problem is or someone else's problem is, so that maybe you can see that curve in the road ahead and take the fork in the road before you get there, or
Yeah.
address things. So, yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful parts of stories.
Yeah. But then you got to be careful because John Waters grew up rooting for the Wicked Witch of the West in Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Now he became a successful filmmaker and artist and writer and everything. But dude, you root for the bad guy. Yeah.
So, someone told me this just yesterday. Apparently, Netflix, their stats, um, they will get more clicks when they show images of the villain than the hero.
Yeah.
So people are drawn to that obstacle. I think villains are interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you wonder who's making that statistic and who wrote up the question to get that data.
Yeah.
That's all that data is like, how can we prove this? But that's a funny thing, Luke, because I'm curious, where's your tipping point to become a documentarian and an animator? What drew you to, working in moving image? Growing up, did you watch TV and movies as a kid and go, when did you go, I want to do this? Where's your tipping point?
Yeah, I was lucky to be like introduced to movies. I didn't have TV really growing up, so I experienced movies more than TV.
In movie theaters or on TVs at home?
At first, movie theaters, and then I remember like getting renting Laserdisc players and projectors from the library. So first movies I watched were all on film, like with 16 mil projectors. So that there's something quite magical and tangible about that. So I think
But
that.
mainstream films, or are your parents taking you to art films too?
Oh, a bit of both. Yeah, a bit of both.
Oh,
Remember watching Falling Asleep in Eraserhead and like the kids films, cartoons. Remember like the Red Balloon. I don't know if you ever saw that one. I think that's what it's called. But that was one of the earliest films I remember watching. But it was Wallace and Gromit were what was my tipping point. I remember watching Wallace and Gromit in my early teens and just being like, I want to do that. Like, something clicked with that sense of humor and that that kind of big silly grin. And I don't know. I loved Wallace and Gromit, and that was what got. I didn't like Nightmare Before Christmas, which everyone else seemed to love. It was something about claymation really struck a chord with me. And then like the Coen brothers and David Lynch were huge influences, just on the filmmaking side.
Yeah, Ann Arbor Film Festival, which you won this year, congratulations. That we sort of broke clay animation with Will Vinton's Closed Mondays. That?
I do remember that. Yeah.
That was really the big one because he just came out of Gumby, and it had been around, but Closed Mondays really made an impact.
Really?
In the clay animation world, and then it became television commercials and rock videos. That guy Buzzbox. Have you ever seen Buzzbox?
I don't know Buzzbox. No.
Dude, you better look that up because it's the same guy who did he did a Peter Gabriel rock video, but Buzzbox is just like Closed Mondays pressed to fucking LSD extreme, and that was another big clay animation revelation in that world, and then the guy I've worked with, because I worked with Frank Zappa's. Have you ever seen Bruce Bickford's clay animation?
He is a huge inspiration. Yeah, and I asked you just through email, like you said he used to camp on your front lawn, or
he used to camp in my backyard.
Okay, yeah, I really.
But you learned of him through The Amazing Mr. Bickford or through the documentaries on Bruce? How did you learn of Bruce?
It was around the time The Amazing Mr. Bickford came out.
On VHS.
I had seen some of like the Zappa stuff just through this and that, and I'm really bad with names, and Uh, my recall of films I've seen is really
Oh,
poor.
that's all right. If you knew, Closed Mondays and Bruce Bickford, that's enough, dude. But
Yeah.
anyways, a screenwriting teacher told me, "Oh, but where's your tipping point to go into documentary?" I mean, then did you start as an animator or you start as a documentarian?
I started as an animator, and documentary kind of happened by accident. My friend asked me to go into doing like kind of corporate video. So we have a small company where we do like documentaries and animations for clients, so client
I
based work, and interviewing farmers, arts workers, this and that.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with interviewing people and meeting all different walks of life. And uh, yeah, and there's something very free. I like Verte stuff as well. Like just
Yeah.
being more in the moment. No, yeah, it was a bit of an accident. When I went to film school, I was thinking more like Coen Brothers style film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the the process of making documentary, and I think there's something about the process that it doesn't even matter if people see what was made after. There's just something special about for
Oh,
everyone involved immediately. Um, so
yeah.
yeah,
Just think of Frederick Wiseman, 50 years just shooting docs. What a life, But
yeah.
anyways, this is goes right into the a screenwriting teacher in Ann Arbor actually told me a great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. A great film is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're making a Luke film? It's not a for hire film, or it's solely you're making a film for Luke, not a commission. What role does intention play?
Well, with Uncle Bardo, which played at Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
I tried to erase any intention. So there was I in the whole creative process, and that was the nature of the project that I embraced. So I think it depends on the project. There's another project I'd like to work on in the future that I think is would be the intentions would be set out from the beginning and more thought out, like, oh, this shot's going to go here, this is going to go there, this is creating that mood. But with the nature of telling someone else's memories of their time in a coma, like, I think intention is your worst friend in that situation of how are you supposed to share something like that. So um I like just trying to pull yourself out of the process. But I think I learned, at least personally, it was that only goes so far. You can't really uh, erase all intention without just being a pure wash of experimentation, which is also cool. But when you have a somewhat of a narrative thread, you're gonna be there one way or another as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
whether you want to be or not. Yeah, I think of like sports or like skateboarding. Like when you see someone just effortlessly um, perform a trick of some sort, it's like they make it look easy. You don't see all of those hours of like painstaking falls and trials and errors and of getting there. Like there was a lot of intention to get somewhere, but I like Kubrick's kind of take on it. If I had to
Yeah.
go one way or another, where that intention, once it's presented in its final form, is hidden from the audience, but you can't. Kubrick was very intent in what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a deceiving quote to
Yeah,
take out of context for Kubrick because he's very intentional, but it's good
I
to
like it. Yeah,
parallax it with the other one.
totally. Yeah.
But Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential viewer when you're making something like Uncle Bardo?
That was a big part. That was where the intention kind of had to come in, because I think I had a 25-minute cut of not thinking about it. I was like, oh, the audience is just gonna not be into this. Like you got to think of the end result. I think you gotta if it, especially for a film where you have an audience like stuck in a room, or even harder on a computer screen where they can leave at any single moment. I do think that the audience is, you should care about the audience, I think, with a certain type of film. I think I love the idea of just freeform film where you just kind of go with it, and that's more of like a painting on a wall. But you're not going to go to a movie theater and necessarily watch that. Ann Arbor Film Festival is special because they have the best audiences that I've came across so far. But yeah, I think the audience is very important, and I agree with Duchamp. The way the world works right now, the audiences are the without the audience, who are you showing it to? Like, why there's not going to be an industry without the audience. Like, you need seats in the ballet for the ballet to be worth putting on. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's Joyce said it in Finnegan's Wake. Are my consumers not my producers?
Yeah.
That's the question.
I should read that book. I haven't read it, but
Oh, you got to read out loud with a group of people. But anyways, in order to, that it's an unreadable book in basic, but it's what McLuhan learned from Finnegan's Wake, is that everything we invent extends some humanness. So knife and fork extends our teeth. Shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. And maybe even non-tangible, say religion or philosophy, might extend consciousness. What is the moving image camera? Whether it's 16 millimeter or video, what does the movie camera extend for you? What humanness?
Specifically the camera, I guess the obvious answer is your eyes and your unique perspective on the world. But then underneath that, I think you can weave in your feelings.
Yeah.
And then maybe some thoughts into that tapestry as well.
Yeah. It's funny. That's an answer a lot of people give in memory. And McLuhan, not that he's right or wrong, also said the moving image camera extends your foot because you travel.
Yes, I like that.
So let's go into film in a little, because this whole genre of documentary filmmaking has really exploded. So you're working at it in an industrial way, but there's so many filmmakers, from Ken Burns to Werner Herzog to Errol Morris, and it's endless, that they've put documentaries in popcorn theaters.
Yeah.
And that, Barbara Koppel's Harlan County was the first in the 70s where we went, holy fuck, this is a documentary, and we're watching it in a mainstream movie theater.
Which one's that? I don't know.
It's called Harlan County by
Okay.
Barbara Koppel. Oh no, it's a she's a pioneer in documentary filmmaking, because she basically made this incredible film about coal miners in the southern states of America. And she ran up a credit card bill making the film, and then she just thought in the long run someone would buy it and pay off all the bills, and they did.
Oh, right on. Nice.
and it became a formula. Then people started going, oh, we can do that. Just run up credit cards and make your film. But documentary filmmakers will tell you hardly any of them make any money. It's a struggle. But I mean, you've got a gig where they pay you to make them, so that's cool. You got a crossover. But I mean, again, in your own pursuits on your own Luke films, I'm curious your thoughts on Herzog's Breakdown. he says there's 4 types of truths that you can seek or pursue in making film, documentary film, because people think, well, this is, you're telling a story, but you're an observer and you're documenting. So he said there's emotional truth. That's like Ken Burns. You watch Ken Burns documentary with your parents and everybody's crying. And then there's physical truth, which is sort of like more Michael Moore. You get a belly laugh. And then there's intellectual truth, which is like Chris Marker, Sans Soleil, or Agnes Varda. And then what Herzog said is, I go for ecstatic truth. It's it's like an epiphany. You're more having some sort of like revelation on your own. You're not being told to think a certain way or agenda. I mean, maybe you can suss out, what are you seeking in Uncle Bardo? Emotional truth, physical truth, ecstatic truth, or intellectual truth, or any combination or variation.
Yeah, I think without being like overly intent about it, because I hadn't heard those 4 distinctions before, but I was trying to avoid all of those, like play with like the um, fallacy of a lot of those truths, and like how you can manipulate those truths, and like what how can you possibly represent those truths without um, like misrepresenting them? Like how can you really be truthful?
Well, that's really powerful, because if you study the difference that came up between direct cinema, which is the Maisel brothers, Leacock, and Frederick Wiseman. Direct cinema is fly on the wall. You're observational. Cinema verite is like Jean Rouch or Joshua Oppenheimer. You're fly in the soup.
Yeah.
You're part of it. So it sounds like you're more cinema verite, fly in the soup, than fly on the wall.
If you can possibly call an animated film verite, I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would say verite, yeah, in the soup for sure.
Yeah.
I just learned what direct cinema meant last week for the first time. So,
Yeah. But that's the easy way to break it down, but it's
I like it. Yeah.
It's so interconnected.
Yeah.
But fly on the wall is observational. I mean, when the Maisel brothers made Grey Gardens, they're flying the soup, but they're basically observational. But then, the subject starts falling in love with the filmmakers and flirts with them. That's,
yeah.
That.
Well, I think that's what I was getting at when, like, it doesn't matter whether people see the film or not. Just the process of making the documentary is impactful on the people, and I think it is usually positive. Just if you are, you're making people think about why they're doing what they're doing, and like, oh, maybe there are connections here, like that they might not really appreciate in their own life. So I don't know. There's something validating about the process. So
Yeah. But you're saying the process for the filmmaker or the subject matter, or both?
For both, yeah. But it's definitely both. But I think it's different for each. I think the subject takes more away from it than is given kind of general credit when you talk about documentaries after they've been made.
Yeah. Because here's the funny thing. Frederick Wiseman called his docs reality fiction.
Yeah.
The Frederick Wiseman of Canada, Alan King, called his actuality dramas.
Yeah.
and Richard Leacock called his docs historical fantasies. So all 3 of them are saying, dude, we're making shit up, but we're making it look real. I mean, Frederick Wiseman, in my opinion, is the most pure documentarian ever. No voiceover, no added music, no nothing. He's just sets up the camera, but it's still, is he setting it up like this or like that? That's still a big deal.
Well, that's the beauty of film right there, I think, is I don't know if you've watched many VR 360 documentary experiences. There's been a very valid effort to document with new technologies, and I think it can work, but you lose the framing. I think the framing is such an essential part of the filmmaker's job, or like what they're doing is how do you want to frame this, from the image to the content to the meaning, and so yeah, that's very much the what a filmmaker's doing, is they're putting a frame around all of these layers of what film has to offer. So.
Well, Luke, you have ESP because that's you anticipated the next question beautifully. What informed your framing aesthetic, how you frame? So as you can see, both of us are framed a certain way. I'm not framed this way, and I'm not framed this way, but there's something in your growing up that informed how you frame stuff. What contributed to your framing aesthetic? How'd you acquire it?
I being, again, mistakes, looking at just by doing client films and interviewing so many people on camera, and then getting back into the editing suite and seeing like, oh, that looks like crap. That's not flattering for the person. Like, why do I see so much of the ceiling? I missed their room was so cool. Like, you can tell a lot about the background of a shot, but maybe you get into a space and it's like, oh, there's it's just a white room. So then, oh, maybe I need to go in closer for this. So there's so many. I definitely think of on how are you representing the person, or if that's what you're trying to capture is the personality of a person. If it's for a corporate video and you're doing a video about some dairy farm, you probably want to see as much of the dairy operation in the background, as opposed to just a close-up of a farmer's face on a. So I think the framing tells a story, it doesn't. It tells a story in itself. Every frame has a story, and how does that add to what it is you're trying to convey? And with Uncle Bardo, I was just having a bit more fun with it. But we were he lived in a very small apartment. There wasn't many options. It was pointing towards the window or pointing towards his kitchen. And I could have gone in a little bit closer on him, but it was like, there's something there, his little computer and his desk, and there's this beautiful little Tom Thompson painting on the wall that is kind of subtly referencing what might happen later in the film, which I didn't know would be an influence later on. But so there's his canes in the background. So there's a lot of little like subliminal things in the background that I think add to his character, or at least that's what I was hoping to. And often you don't realize these things till after you've shot them. It's an intuition that you get just through repetition. I don't think you learn it other than making mistakes.
Right, but it is funny because I asked that question Bruce Bailey in Ann Arbor. How'd you form your framing aesthetic? Because experimental filmmakers are always doing this kind of
I used to do a lot of that.
A different type of than standard. And he said, Jean Cocteau said, we learned our framing aesthetic by the way people put their knife and fork on the plate like this. And it really is. We all learned our framing aesthetic from the past photographers and painters of the history of art in photography, because they set it all up. Oh, then Robert Frank came along and started shooting photographs like this, and like, oh, you can do that, and he got away with it, And so it shifts, the framing, and then German expressionist film, blah blah blah. But
well, if you really think of the extension of the eyes, like our heads aren't like most people's heads aren't walking around like this. So I think it's trying to be like it makes you feel like you're there. And I did a lot of experimentation with the canted angles, low angle, this and that, and it's more fun to shoot in many ways, but it often gets lost in translation, and you end up. So again, what's your intention? And but I think it goes even before the maybe the knife and fork is a good example, but art, the framing of paintings and all that it's all coming from the human perspective, I think, and what is relatable, what's going to draw the viewer in.
Well, check out McLuhan's whole study on the vanishing point, how that once we started having a vanishing point in paintings, then people started having points of view. It sounds kooky, but it is amazing. Like I spoke with Michael Apted, who made documentaries and Coal Miner's Daughter, both mainstream films and docs, for many years. This was more than 40 years ago. I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? And most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s with MTV, to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. So Michael had said, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I asked this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I think we can probably retain information faster. I'm a pretty slow processor generally. So when I see other people that can just bang things out really quick, I'll think of it 3 hours later or something like that. I think we've probably, as a species, slowly started processing things faster and faster. That's my guess. I don't think we've changed that much, though, at the same time.
Can humans literally multitask?
I can't. I don't. Yeah. I depends how or like how narrow do you want to get. You can be doing 3 things at once, but you're only ever doing one thing at a time in the moment. I wouldn't recommend multitasking to anyone.
What do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Your hunch or guess?
It probably started just with curiosity and exploration of new tools. And then, and then again, that same thing with story. Passing on, it could be warning signs. It could be like instructional. Could just be entertainment. It's probably a little bit of everything. I imagine there's a lot of same reasons we're telling stories today.
Hollis Frampton, great experimental filmmaker, said narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. My question is, can you forget to die?
I think that you'd be doing yourself a disservice to ignore dying. I think it's probably something to embrace and think about and talk about with your friends and family and elders and community, and find but you can ignore it. It might be more shocking in the end. I don't know. Yeah.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
I think you need to be able to compromise. With conviction.
I've had that answer. That's a good one. You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these 3 elements in your accomplishments? Luck, skill, and ambition. What's played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck, skill, and ambition?
Yeah.
Yeah, luck. Well, we're all so lucky in our own circumstances. I think just to be born into wherever you are, and I was able to have the ability to then develop skills, um, and ambition is, yeah. I think they all weave together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't discount luck though. I think take advantage of opportunities that present themselves, and also don't wait for the opportunities to present themselves, because you kind of got to make them, and then you'll find the luck. So,
Yeah. Gary Player, the golfer, said the more you practice, the luckier you get.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
T.S.
Yeah, I
Eliot
like the idea of practice. I think
yeah.
that's yeah.
T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Oh, colors and
Yeah.
shapes, and yeah.
It's good. George Manupelli started the Ann Arbor Film Festival over 6 decades ago. His mantra was ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas said there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I like the second idea there, where it is a bit more of a channeling, but
Yeah.
I think you're it's a bit of a unless you're very good at clearing your mind. I think no matter what, you're the filter, and you're going to leave your little speckles of dust in there, whatever it is that you're putting out there, whether you're playing piano or yeah, even I like the thought. I'm not a big hockey fan, but big hockey fan was comparing hockey players to improv jazz musicians. They're just the finest. When you really look at what's being done there, there's not much thought. It's practice, and then just when things are coming at you, you just know how to react in the moment. And I think that's where I think the best artists are continually practiced. So
Yeah, Gordie Howe is the John Coltrane of his time.
totally, yeah.
No, Train is the Gordie Howe. So can art making be egoless?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think everyone would do better to I think you can have a healthy sense of ego. I don't think you need to eradicate ego, but I don't think that might not be possible. But yeah, if you can get rid of the hubris of the whole thing, and just accept who you are, kind of thing, and be comfortable in your own skin, and then I think things can be made with the right intentions. So,
Is perception reality?
one person's.
Yeah. This actually, Luke, is what you went into a little with your film. McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, saying, artists dream awake. Not to sound elitist, but everybody has this power to create these scenarios in the middle of the night when they're sleeping. But artists can also do that while they're awake. They're like dreaming awake. So dreams played a role in your creative process, or just, sort of describe that phenomenon that you explored in your film, between the difference between a coma and a dream. Is there a difference? And one more thing is, like Jean Cocteau said, it's a filmmaker's privilege to be able to allow a large number of people to dream the same dreaming together, to show us the optical illusions of unreality with the rigor of realism. So, I mean, that sort of is explaining your film, right? There's the optical illusions of unreality with the rigor of realism. I mean, just anywhere you want to go in discussing that. What's the
Well,
difference?
I think that's what drew me. All those little references there are what drew me to wanting to explore because I heard my uncle tell this story of his time in a coma before I decided to make a film about it. And it is that I've always been intrigued by dreams and this dream state, it's kind of this wonderland that you're in at the same time you're solely responsible for, but completely out of control of. And if you're lucky enough to have vivid dreams, like there is a very real sense of reality in there. I don't. Some people will say, "Oh, it's just a dream," but that's not just a dream. You lived that, you experienced it. It's real. It's just in your dream reality, not your wake reality. But to caveat that, when talking to my uncle who was in the coma, he said the coma experience was very different than the dream experience. Um, it was a different reality that he was in that was different than a vivid dream. Being in a coma was to him, it was an extension of the awake reality. Like and then slowly he realized, oh, something's a little off here. But he was very conscious throughout the experience. But then it leaves questions like he only remembers what he remembers. So is that memory of his time in the coma, is that just 10 minutes of his time of the 2 weeks he was under, or was he vivid the whole time throughout it? He swears his piece of advice was, if you are ever with someone in the coma state, to talk to them, because he could hear the people on the other side, and he was translating those voices into whatever reality he was in within the coma state. So and when he came out of it and was in the coma ward, he'd see family and friends come and visit other people and just sit there in silence. And he's like, no, you got to talk to the person, even if they're not responding. So if there's any practical advice I got from this whole experience, is talk to someone when they're in a coma.
Yeah. And it's the exact opposite of Pascal in a way. He said we could solve all the problems of the world if we could learn how to sit in a room and be quiet in solitude.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but if you're in a coma, you want to get talking.
Yeah.
You want some interaction to say, because Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast.
Yeah.
Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Oh, I guess as you age, now in my mid early 40s, things become impossible. Like where in your early 20s, it's like everything's possible. I can do this, I can do that. It's like as you age, there are real limitations that happen, and that's actually kind of cool, I think. And it makes decision making a little bit easier. But it doesn't. There's not a morning that I don't wake up and dream of something impossible that I would love to do, and those are the romantic notions that kind of make life fun. So
I like that, romantic notions. So, Luke, tell me one major element of your creativeness that's stayed the same and one element that's changed in the years you've been being creative.
I'm pretty I like to pre-plan a lot. I probably overthink things, and but then when I go into actually making, I just throw that all out the window and just then let things happen. And I would say that is remained consistent. Let things come naturally in the moment. I think that's the joy of creating, for me at least. And new things, yeah, I want to try writing more. That would be yeah. And that's a different type of practice that So
I
yeah.
got I was working for George Carlin at one point, and we got a flyer in the mail, and it said, "I'm trying to get more control over my spontaneity." um, Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Um, well, maybe it's I'm a pretty slow reader, so I love reading though. So just taking my time with books and not trying to rush through things, and taking time to not trying to have an quantity, a large quantity of information, but just trying to understand the small bits of information that are put in front of me, and yeah, not trying to put too much information in my brain.
Pretty good, dude. I like that. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when.
Complacent.
Yeah. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Um, it's hard to answer that one. It's without being like overly general, but thinking very, very generally, it's I think um, like compassion and care for just your fellow humans.
Yeah.
Not I think at least a lot of the women in my life have been very good at putting other people first. And,
Yeah. Beautiful. There's a line that goes, "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into, "You are what you hate." James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." So, any thoughts on this? You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Luke, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
well, yeah, I go to the deepest things like I just who wants war?
Yeah.
Just it's tragic, and it's but what can you do about it as just a humble person, wherever you are, whether you're in the midst of it or whether you're there's very few people that really can do much about that. But so where do those things come from? If we stop thinking about it, would they go away? Probably not. I don't know. Would the people that are making it happen, if they stop thinking about it, maybe it would go away. Those people need to uh, stop thinking about war, and then they might not
I
need to go there.
I agree. I just wrote an essay called "Can Art Stop War?" and it's based on matristic civilization, back to, your thoughts of women being compassionate and caring, in
Yeah,
that, Maria Gimbutas and Rian Eisler wrote a book called Chalice and the Blade, and they basically promote that we're more hardwired to be cooperating than we are to fight. Most people we're hardwired to be violent or warring. It's like, nope, we're more hardwired to be cooperating.
yeah,
And they rely on that. Oh, I have to fight and defend. No, you share and you cooperate and you find commonalities. So it's a sad thing. So
yeah.
here is 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words.
Sure.
1, who started it all?
ah, it's the mystery.
Mystery's a good answer. 2, are we going to make it?
uh, make something, yes.
Good. 3, where do we put it?
Um, on a plate. I don't know. That's
3, or number 4, who's cleaning it up?
I'll clean it up.
5, is it serious?
Yes.
All right, I got a few more and we're out of here, Luke. This has really been fun. I appreciate your time. How do you find peace of mind?
Sleep.
Yeah.
And also music. Music.
Music.
Yeah.
You mean making music or listening?
More listening for myself. Yeah, I wish I could do it playing, but yeah.
Yeah. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Everything matters.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Under. Go ahead.
Highly unusual, dude. 80% of people say it goes over, and the people who say under have their reasons. It's funny because the patent has it going over.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. Yeah.
If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oh, well, the first word that came to my mind was nothing, but I don't know.
Nothing was a. There's a great line on the Zappa song. It goes, "Nothing is what I want."
There, I like that. Yeah. All I know is that I don't know nothing.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Oh, gasoline.
Oh my God, that's wild. Gasoline. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Oh, it'd be pretty cool to have a statue like at the bottom of the ocean.
And what's it made of?
Oh, I guess clay would be pretty awesome. It'd be pretty morbid down there. Yeah.
Well, tell me something good.
It would disappear. I like that.
Yeah, it would disappear if it's made clay. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
A job at an office desk?
An office job. That's a good answer, dude. People always fight and go, if it's good, I want it. I was like, no. Okay. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I would probably try to appreciate the smells.
That's good. Appreciate the smells. That's good. Yeah, well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You've got a positive outlook on life. You know, this woman, I asked this question once on the Venice Boardwalk, and she says, well, I take the velocity of the bag of shit and use it to swoop my way out of the vat of vomit. I said, dude, that's the Descent into the Maelstrom, the short story by Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay,
and this is what McLuhan said. If we're swirling, the sailor is his boat is destroyed by the storm, and the boat parts are swirling around in a whirlpool, and he's going to go down to his death. And instead, he studies the swirling and uses the boat parts to get out of the whirlpool.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing. If we can, find, it's basically, again, what McLuhan learned from Finnegan's Wake is you find a breakdown and turn it into a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Or you find a rejection and turn it into a redirection.
I like that. Yeah.
So it's sort of like what you've said throughout this conversation is how you learn from mistakes. But you're not seeking out, oh, I need to fail.
No. Yeah.
You're being observational. So you're not again, it's like a Zappa line. He says, I'm a failure, but I'm not a miserable failure.
Yeah, I think working as an animator for television, you do two, three, whatever, if you're lucky, 4 shots in a day. And every single time you have the animation director come in and look at the shot and tell you what was wrong with it. And
Yeah.
you had a good reason. You felt great about it. And it really humbles you that to eventually just suck it up and like, no, they're right. And
But where did you get this positiveness? You have a positive attitude. You're more an optimist, I think, than anything. Did you get it from the way your parents raised you or on your own?
A bit of both. Yeah, I think some entrepreneurial parents that made their own way and kind of didn't rely on anyone other than themselves, and I was fortunate to see them succeed in a lot of their efforts. So to see that you can make a go of it, and but also to see how much work went into it, and that no one sees half the effort that goes in, not even half. You only see the tip of the iceberg of anyone's kind of output in the real world. So everyone's living, and just to appreciate that a lot of people don't have those lucky opportunities, and you have to make your own enjoyment.
Yeah.
Out of an experience. So yeah, whether you're in a vat of vomit or what,
Yeah,
you might want to get out of there. Yeah,
you might want to get out of there. It's not a pleasant situation. Yeah, but I'll appreciate the smells. Oh my God. But that's like you know, it's a accentuate the positive, but Utah Phillips said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Yeah, I think a lot about the ideas of anarchy. I think everyone has their own interpretation of it, but I think we ultimately if the middle North American class has the luxury of living in their own anarchy, and make those rules themselves. I think there's a lot of people in the world that don't have the luxury of living in their own anarchy. So I think anarchy is kind of a bit of a North Star kind of thing, a personal anarchy.
Well, it's funny. The funny thing is, if you break down the word freedom etymologically, it's the exact same thing Utah said. Freedom comes from giving oneself one's own laws.
Yeah.
So what does freedom mean to you now?
For me, yeah, I think that's like it's not my thought, but I really resonated with it. It's like the freedom to go where you would like when you want to go, and the freedom to leave when you want to leave.
Yeah.
And the freedom to make your own boundaries, and but you also want to be welcoming. It's very complicated. Yeah. Freedom. It breaks down pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah, like the autonomous cars. Are you free to leave? It's better for your safety. The seatbelt. I still have to put my seatbelt on, and my car beeps at me. So but I still feel free as a person. So I'm free not to drive. It's.
we live in a car world. That's it. I don't have a cell phone. People go, "That's so cool." I says, "No, I live in a cell phone world. It doesn't matter if I have one or not." I don't drive a car anymore. I've been drove for 50, 60 years. So what? They still live in a car world. It's me on a bike against cars, man. It's it's not an easy life. It's like, oh. So I wanted to go back to work ethic because it's a question I rarely ask, but I'll say, where'd you get your work ethic to people? And most 99% say from my parents. But
Yeah.
if you look at work ethic, and it sort of sounds like, you got that somewhat. Your parents said, be dedicated and practice.
They
But
never
if you,
said that. It was observational.
it's
Yeah.
observational. Yes. Thank you for correcting that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that's the way they raised you, but or by example. But if you look at the Wikipedia's definition of work ethic, about the third paragraph down, it says this could be a scam from consumer culture. Because
Yeah.
we are all so destined to accomplish and do something you
Yeah.
know and then
I think real freedom would be the freedom not to work. We're not there yet.
right, and it's like one of my homeless friends says, dude, as soon as AI takes over, there will be no more war, there will be no more, you don't have to work, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
it,
don't. I hope they're right, but
yeah,
there's that
no, but
option.
we will
Yeah.
still work and we'll still be human, but
Yeah.
it's just another tool in
It,
how
it
we process it.
it would be nice if that trend of the tool ended up being used by the oppressors. First is liberating for a
Yeah,
little bit, and then it becomes oppressive. It'd be nice if that trend changed, but
yeah,
from
yeah,
the smarter people I've listened to, that's just the way it goes.
yeah.
So,
It's in its infant stage, and it's our job to raise it well.
yeah.
So a couple more and we're done, Luke. Thank you for your time. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Oh, um, what's a good question? Maybe. uh, Not to turn it on itself, but yeah, yeah, it's a great
No,
question.
that's actually, the guy goes to his guru and he says, "What's the best question I can ask you?" And the guru goes, "The one you just asked me."
Yeah, I like that.
No, that's funny because someone said, when I said, "What's the best thing for a human being?" The first question, they said, "Being asked that question."
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
How how has filmmaking shaped your behavior? Being an animator, documentarian, how's that shaped your behavior?
um, I think it's really. I think like with most art practices, and not you don't have to be an artist to have this, but you start to look at the world differently, and you break down just the way the human body walks. That was the first thing. You start watching people differently, seeing the way people interact and people move, and
Yeah.
also understanding symbolism, which I can thank David Lynch for not understanding anything in any of his movies, still to this day, but still
Yeah.
being able to appreciate that. Um, yeah, really appreciating, um, yeah, just to be able to break things down metaphorically.
Yeah. It's good. McLuhan has a great line. All words are metaphorical.
Yes.
Or all words are made up. But then I added the questions. If all words are metaphorical, then what's the word literal a metaphor for?
Yeah.
Because Lynch is being, you've learned symbolism from him, but I think also your desire to be observational as a documentarian is like seeing the world with new eyes,
Yeah.
being able to observe. Well, Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, Uh, I don't want to just say like shits and giggles or something like that, but it's like you don't want to take it too seriously. But what is the how can you most value your time and make the most of your time and being part of community is a hard part of being an artist. There's that struggle of being like just you're in your own world and how are you being involved, but somehow marrying those two things together,
Yeah.
that's I don't know, yeah, yeah, making the most of it,
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, just live in the moment.
Be
um,
here now. I like that. That's
yeah.
amazing. Wyndham Lewis said an amazing thing. Artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So it's all
Yeah,
about live in the moment.
yeah.
And what gives you the most optimism?
Oh, kids,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm I have a lot of hope for the children of the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so much to learn from kids, which we listen to them more often, and elders too. I think that's
Yeah.
yeah,
But that's important. You say kids because 90% of the people, when I ask them what gives you the most optimism, they go youth, children, kids. So that is hopeful, and I appreciate that. In fact, the first question I asked was, what is the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question I ask is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people.
yeah.
So it's sure been, and you stress this idea of community so much throughout. It's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you, Luke. Thank you so much for your time and energy, man.
Well, thank you, Jerry. Yeah, this is first time I've ever done anything like this, so thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I appreciate the rapid fire, off the cuffness of it all, and yeah, I love it. So thank you.
Really cool. Even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever, man. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
keep in touch.
Okay.
All right, take care, man.